revealed how a millionaire CEO discovered a little girl in the snow, bringing amazing life-changing power to his community. James Miller was feeling the weight of his world, a multi-million-dollar empire pressed against his chest. He drove home through the swirl of falling snow, the blinding white cocoon wrapping around his sleek black car. He was a titan in the corporate arena, a self-made millionaire who wore his success like a designer suit. Yet, amid all the shiny reports and financial triumphs, a hollow ache lingered beneath the surface. It felt like he was driving through life with the engine running on empty. As he turned onto the deserted street leading to his home, a flicker of movement caught his eye. There, on a frozen park bench beneath the flurry of flake after flake, a small figure trembled against the cold. 6-year-old Emma, her little face framed by oversized mittens, peered into the abyss of winter while the world around her rushed on. Everything about her presence tugged at his heart. James parked his car, his breath catching in his throat, as he rushed towards her. "Hey there, little one. Are you all right?" The words spilled out, wrapped in urgency and warmth. Emma looked up, her brown eyes wide and glistening like melting icicles. "I'm waiting for my mom," she whispered, as if the wind might carry her words away. In that moment, a truth ignited within James. He learned that Emma's mother had recently lost her job, and the family was on the brink of eviction. This tiny girl had plucked up the very reserves of bravery, and he was moved beyond what he thought possible. He bent down, locking eyes with her. "Let me help," he said, his voice breaking slightly with sincerity. Just like that, he decided to step out of his world of numbers and into hers. But this was a small town, and whispers spread faster than the snow could melt. What's James thinking? Is he trying to play the hero? His longtime friends scoffed, branding his support a publicity stunt. The townsfolk, well acquainted with the sting of economic hardship, eyed him with skepticism, unable to reconcile the rich CEO with the blessing he aimed to offer Emma's family. In this heated mix of admiration and derision, James confronted the gnawing question of what it truly meant to help. Was he doing this out of genuine compassion, or was he merely feeding his own emptiness with heroic gestures? The doubts chased him like shadows. Just as he found a solution to help Emma's family, misunderstandings led to heated exchanges in town, turning him into a target of laughter and disdain. Standing amidst the festive crowd for the holiday gathering, tension crackled in the air like fireworks, ready to explode. Children giggled, families hugged, but James felt the weight of his tarnished reputation, feeling more like an imposter than the man who saved a little girl. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue with Emma on his mind. James couldn't help but feel the pull of responsibility. Should he step back into the shadows to protect himself from ridicule, or plunge headfirst into the storm brewing around him? Everything he thought he knew about success shattered like ice underfoot. As the laughter of children echoed around him, he felt the dawning realization this was about more than being a hero. This was about family, community, and the deep-rooted values that bind lives together. In that very moment, he decided his next move, ready to fight back against the tide of doubt that threatened to sink everything he hoped to change. Unbeknownst to him, the fiercest storm was yet to come, and it would test not only his resolve but the very fabric of the community he thought he knew. Would he rise to the occasion, or would he crumble under the pressure? James stood frozen in the middle of the holiday gathering, his heart pounding like a drum. Around him, families huddled together, radiating warmth and laughter. But he felt as if he were trapped in a silent film, the smiles blurred by the harsh criticism echoing in his mind. The glimmering lights of the holiday decorations twinkled above a stark contrast to the shadows clouding his thoughts. What was he really doing here? The laughter, the joy, it felt so distant. He had entered this gathering with the hope of helping Emma and her family, but the whispers were like a biting winter wind, cutting through any semblance of confidence he had left. "Look at him," one voice sneered. "Think he can buy his way into our hearts?" James swallowed hard, trying to shake it off. He needed to focus on everything he had witnessed, the raw vulnerability in Emma's eyes and the determination in her young heart. He wasn't just fighting for Emma. He was fighting for everyone in the community affected by hardships just like hers. Gathering his courage, he stepped forward. The cold air sliced through him, but there was fire in his belly now. He'd come too far to back down. "Excuse me, everyone," he called, his voice slicing through the festive noise. Heads turned, and chatter faded. "I know some of you have questions about what I've been trying to do. I'm not here to be a hero, far from it. I'm here because I believe that we can make a difference together." Curiosity mixed with skepticism sparked among the crowd. Some narrowed their eyes. Others leaned in, intrigued. "I met Emma just a few days ago," he continued, gesturing toward her in the corner with eyes wide as saucers. "She deserves a chance at a warm home, and so do many others. We're not alone in this struggle. If we join hands and fight together, maybe we can reshape our community for the better." The silence was palpable. Kids paused mid-giggle, looking at him openly. As he spoke, he noticed Emma inching closer, her little fingers pulling on his pant leg. Her presence brought a rush of energy, igniting the resolve within him. Just as he was beginning to feel the swell of hope, someone shouted, "What do you know about real struggle? You're just a rich CEO." The voice stung, and he felt it resonate in the tension-heavy air. "You're right," James replied, taking a deep breath. "I may not know what it's like to be in everyone else's shoes, but I want to understand. I want to learn your stories and work together to bring change. It's not about charity. It's about us, our families, our neighbors." Chatter began to bubble again, the tension shifting. Some nodded slightly, others whispered among themselves. The energy was changing. A flicker of connection sparked within the crowd. "Can we meet tomorrow?" A voice called out from the back, breaking through the silence. "We could organize something, see who else needs help." "Yes." Another voice added, "Let us get together to talk." James felt a swell of gratitude mixed with disbelief. Could this actually work? As conversations erupted around him, he glanced down at Emma, who was watching him with a bright smile. "Do you think we can do it?" she whispered, her innocence radiating trust. He smiled back, but inside, a whirlpool of emotions raged. What if he couldn't live up to their hopes? Tomorrow would be critical. It could mark the beginning of something transformative, or it could shatter any trust he had begun to build. With a heart full of uncertainty but a flicker of optimism, he resolved to rise above the criticism and foster real change. But could he hold the community's attention long enough to make a difference, especially when a surprise conflict threatened everything he hoped for? James awoke the next morning with a mix of excitement and dread swirling in his chest. The morning sun peeked through his bedroom window, casting a golden hue that felt deceptively warm. As he pulled himself out of bed, he recalled the flood of emotions from the night before. The community had started to open up, but he was afraid they might close up just as quickly. After a quick breakfast, he grabbed his jacket and headed out, the brisk air hitting him like a slap. This meeting mattered. Could be a turning point for Emma, for her family, and for the community. He wanted to build something real, something honoring their stories. When he arrived at the park for their first get-together, he noticed the air was thick with anticipation. The park's familiar sounds, the laughter of children, the rustling of leaves felt different today. He saw groups of people scattered about, some with wary expressions, others wearing cautious hope. James paced around a park bench, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. The chatter was muted, a blend of uncertain tones that seemed unsure how to break the ice. He welcomed Emma, who darted over to him, her little face glowing with eagerness. "Are you ready?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with innocence and trust. "More than ever," James replied, kneeling beside her. "But I need you to help me. Okay?" She nodded vigorously, her pigtails bouncing. Before he could collect his thoughts, A group of adults approached, led by a tall woman with tired eyes. "So, what do you propose we do here?" she asked, crossing her arms. James took a deep breath. "I want to hear your stories. Every single one of them. We need to understand what we're up against before we can make a real difference." Skepticism lingered in the air, but he pressed on. "This isn't just about Emma, it's about everyone who feels lost and forgotten. We have to listen to each other. I want us to create a plan, not just a charity event. This is our community, we have to rebuild it together." Some people shifted uncomfortably, but a few others nodded. They were intrigued, wanting to know more, perhaps wanting to believe him. Then, a man stepped forward from the back. "What if we share our ideas? Our better days? Could that help?" James could hardly believe what he was hearing. "Absolutely," he said, his heart lifting with hope. "Let us turn the heartbreak into inspiration. If we dream together, we can make it a reality." The woman with tired eyes uncrossed her arms. "All right, let us share then. But you better listen, too." As they began to speak, James was taken aback. Stories flowed like rivers, some interconnected, some completely different. He heard about the family whose breadwinner got laid off, the single mother struggling to make ends meet, the elderly couple on the verge of losing their home. Each story carved out pieces of his heart and connected him to them in ways he hadn't anticipated. In the midst of the sharing, Emma stood up and jumped in. "I want to help people like me. We can do it together." Her voice rang with a sweetness that momentarily silenced the crowd. James felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. Could this really turn into something? Just as a wave of hope surged, a commotion erupted at the periphery of their gathering. A group of angry voices approached, led by a man James recognized from the gathering the night before. "You think you can just waltz in here and change things?" he shouted, his voice dripping with disdain. "You don't belong to us." The tension surged like a tempest as everyone turned their attention to the conflict. James could feel the weight of it crushing his resolve. This was supposed to be the beginning, but now, he faced a storm of disbelief and anger just as he was touching the first seeds of unity. How could he possibly convince them that he was there to help? And even more, were their stories strong enough to stand against this looming opposition? With determination igniting within him, he stepped forward to confront the man, ready to fight for the trust he still felt fragile in building. But could he stand tall when the winds of doubt threatened to blow everything he hoped for away? James's heart raced as he took a step toward the angry man, his voice steady despite the chaos swirling around him. "I'm not here to take anything from you," he said, trying to keep his tone calm. "I want to help just like everyone here wants to help. This is about us together." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some seemed torn between loyalty to the man barking harsh words and sympathy for James's earnest plea. The man scowled, clearly unamused. "You don't know what we've been through. You're just a stranger." "I might be a stranger," James replied, looking around at the faces watching him. "But I want to hear you, to learn from you. This community is special, and it hurts to see its struggles. Your voices deserve to be heard." Emma, standing beside him, tugged at her father's jacket. "Please, listen. We can all help each other." Her small voice, filled with conviction, cut through the tension. It was as if everyone momentarily forgot their grievances to see the little girl shining with hope. The man's grim expression softened, just slightly, but it was enough for James to take another step forward. "We can improve our lives, but it starts with trust. Let us break through the walls we've built." Finally, a woman from the back spoke up, her voice cracking but determined. "We've seen too many people come here with promises. What makes you different?" James took a deep breath, knowing this moment could shape everything. "I'm not promising you miracles. I'm promising to stand alongside you, to listen and to learn, and to be a part of this community for the long haul. Together, we might not have all the answers, but we can find them." A ripple of hope sparked in the crowd. Faces that were once hardened by skepticism began to shift, softened by the notion of support and understanding. Gradually, the murmurs turned from doubt to curiosity. "Maybe we can share ideas," an older man finally said, his voice steady now. The town used to have community gardens. People came together to work and share the harvest. It helped our neighborhood feel alive again. Yes. Another voice chimed in. Remember the block parties? They brought us all together. With each story they shared, not only did the crowd unite, but James could feel the tension in his chest releasing. As chairs from picnic tables creaked and people leaned in closer, he realized this gathering was turning into something more than he had hoped for. Let us build a garden again, James suggested. A place to meet, to learn, to share. A symbol of resilience and growth. Emma's eyes sparkled. And we can plant flowers. Everyone loves flowers. She hopped a little with excitement, her innocence brightening the mood. Slowly, heads began to nod in agreement. The man who appeared most resistant crossed his arms, eyeing James with a hint of respect now. All right, but we want to be a part of the planning. No more outsiders trying to take control. Absolutely, James replied, relief flooding through him. This is your community. I'm just here to help amplify your voices. The atmosphere transformed from hostility to camaraderie, the spirit of collaboration igniting their gathering. James sensed the winds of change were finally in their favor, lifting everyone's spirits. Yet, just as the energy shifted into a positive rhythm, he noticed one woman pulling away from the crowd, her face shadowed by doubt. Where are you going? He called out. She turned, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. What if this all falls apart like last time? What if you walk away? I can't take that risk again. James's heart sank. He recognized the weight of her pain. I promise I won't walk away, he said firmly. We're in this together, no matter how hard it gets. As her gaze locked onto his, he realized that rebuilding trust was going to be the toughest part of this journey. But the seeds had been planted, and maybe, just maybe, they would take root. But outside of the warmth of the gathering, shadows loomed. Just as James began to bask in the victory of their newfound unity, a familiar voice pierced the air, echoing like a haunting memory. This can't end well. James turned sharply to see who it was, the man from before, but now with an ally beside him. The doubt creeping back into his chest felt all too real. Who was this new face? What did they want? As the gathering buzzed with optimism, he wondered if the battle for their community had only just begun. James's pulse quickened as he scanned the crowd, the air heavy with his growing unease. The man with the cruel edge to his voice now had a partner, a tall woman draped in a dark coat, her face partially hidden by a wide-brimmed hat. She exuded an air of authority that sent chills skittering down James's spine. Who are you? James demanded, trying to control the tremor in his voice. The woman stepped forward, her eyes narrowing as they met his. I'm here to make sure nothing goes wrong, she stated, her tone flat and devoid of warmth. The tension in the air shifted, wariness thickening as the crowd murmured amongst themselves. I was just telling them about how we can come together, James insisted, glancing back at the crowd whose hopeful demeanor now seemed more fragile than a soap bubble. We can build something beautiful here, something that lasts. The partner of the hostile man scoffed. You think a community garden is going to solve their problems? You don't know the history here. Her voice dripped with skepticism. It's easy to plant flowers and pretend it's enough, but that's not what they need. What do you mean? James retorted, frustration lacing his words. People need hope. They need to feel like they belong somewhere. The woman exchanged a glance with her partner, a silent communication that sent a ripple of annoyance through James. He crossed his arms, unwilling to back down. What's your angle? Are you just here to tear down what we're trying to build? Let us just say we know how little trust is worth here. The man piped in, his arms still crossed but his voice now dripping with condescension. You can't just parachute in and expect everyone to play along. Not when they've seen how promises fall apart. James felt his chest tighten. He looked around, trying to gauge the crowd's reaction. Some still seemed drawn to his earlier excitement, while a few exchanged worried glances as the shadows of the newcomers loomed larger. A soft tug at his sleeve made him turn. It was Emma. Her small fingers tightened around his arm. Daddy, are they going to ruin everything? She whispered, her innocence piercing through the growing doubt. No, he replied, forcing a smile to reassure her while feeling the warmth of his promise dissolve slightly. Everything is going to be okay. But with each passing second, the atmosphere thickened, anxiety growing. Encouraged voices started to dim, doubts creeping in again like darkness at dusk. Maybe we should listen to them just to be safe, one voice suggested tentatively. No, James said, pitching his voice above the gathering gloom. You all deserve to be heard. You have every right to fight for your community. This is about all of us. The woman smirked, then tilted her head, clearly amused. Fighting against the inevitable? You're a brave one. But hope doesn't pay bills or feed families. A spurt of anger ignited within James. You underestimate what hope can do. When we believe in each other, we can rise above. The man with her snickered. I've seen how these stories end. Don't get too attached. James clenched his fists, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel Emma's hand tremble. Look, he said, trying to stay calm, if you want to be a part of this conversation, there's room for everyone at the table. That table has been upside down for years, the woman replied sharply, glancing around as if gauging how many people were still with him. Frustration gnawed at him. He turned back to the crowd, desperation creeping into his heart. Please trust me when I say we can change this. We can build something real together. But as he looked into the uncertain eyes of the crowd, it felt as if a wall was forming between hope and fear. Voices that had begun to rise in camaraderie now shuffled back into the shadows. James's resolve started to waver when he heard a new sound, a faint, mournful howl echoing from beyond the gathering. He turned to the source. The sight that greeted him made his heart sink. A small group of children stood at the edge of the field, their faces stricken with confusion and fear. The shadows of doubt grew heavier as the man spoke again, his voice cutting through the building tension. Look there, he said, nodding toward the children. What are you going to do when they realize you can't fix this? James felt a sinking feeling in his gut. The children looked lost. Their small faces reflected a reality James had fiercely worked to transform. He knew the moment of truth was approaching, and the battle for trust had only just begun. James felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. The children's faces were like flickering candles in the night, the flame threatening to be snuffed out under duress. He fought the urge to step back, to let the overwhelming reality of the moment wash over him. But he couldn't afford to show weakness, especially not in front of Emma. Listen to me, he raised his voice again, determination igniting within him. These kids matter. This community matters. We're building something that lasts not just for today, but for tomorrow. He turned toward the children, willing them to see beyond the shadows creeping at the edges of their innocence. You're not alone. You have people who care. Look around, do you see? We can all make a difference. Together, the woman in the dark coat scoffed. You want them to believe in fairy tales, James. Life isn't a happy ending. It's a series of disappointments. For a moment he faltered. The reality of her words seeped into his thoughts like a dark cloud cutting through the sunshine. He glanced at Emma, her wide eyes watching him with a mixture of trust and trepidation. Maybe I can't fix everything, he admitted, letting the honesty seep through his bravado. But I can try, and I'll keep trying, for you and for all of us. A crack of uncertainty distracted him as one child stepped hesitantly forward, clutching a worn-out stuffed animal. Her trembling lip contrasted sharply against her dirt-smudged cheeks. Are you sure, mister? She asked, the fragility of her hope hanging in the silence between them. James's heart ached at the question. I promise, he said, locking eyes with her. We will make things better. You will have a place to play, to dream, and to grow up surrounded by love. You deserve that. As the words left his mouth, a faint murmur rippled through the crowd. Skepticism mingled with an emergent flicker of hope. It was like watching dawn break after a long, dark night. See? He said, turning to the others, searching their faces for encouragement. That's what community is about. We all come together, we lift each other up. I can't do it alone. But if we all pitch in, we can have the change we dream of. The man with the cruel edge seemed unfazed, his posture rigid. You talk a good game, But I wonder what will happen when the bills come due and the world doesn't give a damn about your dreams. A rush of anger surged through James. He took a step closer, fueled by the urgency of the moment. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need to shift. Look at these children. Look at how we can change lives right here, right now. It's not just about the money. It's about community. The atmosphere shifted slightly, a subtle openness forming among a few faces, though the tension was still thick. Emma smiled at him, her faith unyielding, and he felt the flames of hope start to catch again. But just as he turned back to face the crowd, a voice cracked out with unmistakable concern from the back. But what if we fail? Someone asked. What if it doesn't work out? We've tried before. James swallowed hard. That question deserved an answer. One that wasn't just for him, but one that would resonate with everyone around. Failure is just a stepping stone, he began slowly. It means we learn, we grow stronger, we adapt. He looked around, his eyes lighting on each anxious face, willing them to see. Dreams are worth fighting for. I'll fight for your dreams, if you'll fight for each other's. With that, he caught sight of the children's hopeful expressions flickering like embers, and he knew he had to keep pushing forward. This was their moment. His moment to light the way. But as he spoke, the dark-coated woman stepped closer, her smile cold and calculating. You think you're the hero here, don't you? Just remember, heroes don't always win. Chills ran down James's spine once more as her words hung in the air. The specter of doubt loomed large, and he could feel the fragile threads of hope starting to fray again as the children watched. Wide-eyed and clinging to the last bits of innocence, James realized one thing: he had to confront not just the shadows around him but the demons in his own heart as well. Would the fight for hope truly light the path forward, or would it extinguish in the face of reality? He felt the weight of truth hanging over him, poised delicately on the brink of his next words. Feeling the winds of change swirl, he turned to face the crowd once more, every heartbeat echoing the question. Was he ready to face whatever was coming next? James's mind raced as he searched for the right words, grappling with the heaviness of doubt that swirled around him. He could see it in Emma's worried expression, in the small crowd's wavering belief. Each face reflected a different fear, but also a flicker of that same hope. Listen, he said, raising his voice above the murmurs that threatened to drown him out. I know we've stumbled before. I know that sometimes it feels like we're shouting into the wind. But what if this time is different? What if we actually don't just dream but build? I'm here, I'm willing to work, to sweat, and to fight for this community. Are you with me? Silence fell like a thick curtain, wrapping around every listener. James's heart thumped loudly, every beat a question. Would they stand with him? Just then, a boy with a chipped front tooth broke through the uneasy quiet. I believe you, he said, his voice wavering yet brave. If you promise us, then I want to help too. A wave of murmurs followed, people shifting and nodding, their uncertainty beginning to dissolve. James met the boy's fierce gaze, feeling a surge of gratitude swell inside him. This was the spark they needed. Exactly. That's what it's all about. Everyone can help, no matter how small, he encouraged, looking around at the others. Just think of all we have in common. These children, they deserve a chance. And we owe it to them. The woman in the dark coat stepped back, her smirk faltering as she watched the energy in the crowd begin to shift. James felt a flicker of triumph, but he couldn't lose sight of the battle ahead. Come what may, they had taken their first step towards something bigger. Suddenly, a soft voice piped up behind him. Can we have a playground? I want to swing. It was the girl with the stuffed animal, her eyes wide with dreamlike naivety. Yes, James shouted, his heart swelling. That's exactly what we're going to build. A place where you can laugh and play, filled with swings, slides, and laughter echoing all around. We'll create spaces where all of you can grow and create memories. Who wants to help? Nervousness quickly evaporated, replaced by excitement. Hands shot up, voices filled with enthusiasm. James could feel the room transforming, the energy palpable like the first breath of spring breaking through winter's chill. As the murmurs turned to excited chatter, a sense of unity began to weave through the crowd. They could see it, the possibility, the hope. It wasn't just about the children. It was about their collective future. Yet just as he began to breathe a little easier, a fierce voice broke through the joy. And what if someone gets hurt? What if it falls apart again? The man with the cruel gaze returned, his voice jarring like a sudden clap of thunder. We could let fear dictate our choices, or we could take that risk, James countered, his heartbeat quickening. He was swimming upstream, against the current of doubt, but he couldn't relent. This community is worth the risk. We can learn, we can adapt. Safety is important, but so is taking chances. We can't live in fear if we want something more. The tension swelled, and silence wrapped around them once again. Would they believe in the possibility? Would the fears clawing at their hearts win the day? James's gaze flickered back to the children. Their faces, painted with innocence and desire, ignited a fierce determination within him. He couldn't let them down. Not now. Together, we'll face every challenge and rise above it, because we are stronger when we're united. With every word, he felt doubt breaking like fragile glass, replaced by something solid, trust. As he stepped back, breathless but resolute, the air felt electric with potential. But would they truly rally behind this fight? Or would the shadows swallow their hope whole? As he looked out into the faces around him, yearning and fencing with fear, one last question hung in the air, vibrating with hope and uncertainty. Would they choose to believe in each other? As the silence stretched, hanging in the air like a fragile thread, Emma stepped forward, her eyes shimmering with a mix of fear and hope. James, I want to believe, but she paused, searching for her thoughts, her voice shaking slightly. How do we even start? Her words cut through the thick tension, and the crowd turned to him, expectant. It was a moment that felt heavy with possibility and uncertainty. James took a deep breath, taking in the sea of faces that looked to him for answers. Let us break it down, he said, trying to ground his thoughts. First, let us form a committee. Anyone interested can join. We'll brainstorm ideas, set goals, and find ways to fund what we want to build. A murmur of excitement rippled through the crowd. James seized on that spark, his heart racing. This is our chance. We can plan events to raise money. Bake sales, car washes, fun runs. Everyone can pitch in. As he spoke, James saw a small hand rise in the crowd. Sarah, the girl with the stuffed animal. What about a talent show? She suggested, her voice bright and eager. Yes, a talent show. Perfect. James beamed at her. We'll showcase everyone's talents and charge admission. It'll all be fun, and we could raise money for the playground. Around him, people nodded in agreement. Ideas began to buzz like lively bees. One after the other, they threw out suggestions: community potlucks, yard sales, even a neighborhood cleanup day. But then, a nagging voice echoed again, cutting through the enthusiasm. How will you manage to be here every time? It was the man with the cruel gaze, firmly rooted in skepticism. Isn't that a lot to put on just a few? You think it'll actually work? James met his gaze, holding steady. I will be here, and anyone who wants to help will join me. Together we take this on. This isn't a solo mission. It's a community effort. The crowd began to murmur enthusiastically again, some appearing revitalized while others still held tight to their doubts. James could feel the energy at the edge, ready to explode or fizzle out, depending on how he steered this moment. Emma stepped beside him, her voice steady now. We've seen what happens when we try to go it alone. But when we work together, we can build something beautiful. The man's eyes narrowed as he processed Emma's words. She was right. James felt a shift in the air, and with it came a wave of hope renewed. The tension broke as Sarah shouted, "Let us do it. I want to help." Others echoed her sentiment, their voices overlapping in a chorus of agreement. James could barely contain his excitement, a grin pulling across his face. But then, just as the celebration began to swell, a new voice cut through the crowd, a warm, unfamiliar one that sent a hush falling once more. It's wonderful to see that spark back in the community. An elderly woman with kind eyes said, I'm in. Haven T felt this hopeful in years. Her words breathed life into the gathering, lifting them all. They turned to her, surprised yet energized. "See?" Emma whispered, squeezing James's arm. "This is what we need. And look, the more who come forward, the stronger we become." With that, the crowd shifted closer together, forming a tight circle of connection and commitment. Just as James felt on the brink of triumph, he noticed the shadow of doubt loom again. There were still many struggles ahead. Could they keep this momentum alive? Could they truly transform their hopes into reality? As they began to organize, amid laughter and chatter, the doubt still lingered like a dark cloud overhead. One thing was clear: the fight was only beginning. But as he looked around at the faces lighting up with anticipation, a fierce determination brewed within him. James turned back to the crowd, feeling the warmth of their collective hope. Yet somewhere inside, he couldn't shake the feeling that this journey would reveal truths he hadn't prepared for. And as he stood on the cusp of change, uncertainty loomed. What sacrifices would they need to make in order to turn dreams into reality? As the crowd began to disperse, the fire of excitement still flickering in their eyes, James felt a mix of exhilaration and apprehension. He could hear the murmur of conversations, laughter from neighbors reuniting, and the warmth of community swirling around him. Yet, beneath that warmth was a current of tension. Questions lingered, and uncertainty loomed large. "Hey, want to help me brainstorm for the talent show?" Emma's voice pulled him from his thoughts. A vibrant smile stretched across her face, her enthusiasm infectious. "Absolutely." James grinned, grateful that she was beside him in this journey. Together they began jotting down ideas. Themes for the show, performances they could encourage, ideas for acts that would bring the community together. "Maybe we could have a bake-off alongside it," Emma suggested, brow furrowed in concentration. "Everyone loves a good cookie contest." James laughed. "That could be a crowd pleaser." "And what about local businesses? They might want to sponsor prizes for the winners." Their minds raced as they jotted down potential details, transforming abstract ideas into plans. But then, that skepticism whispered at the back of James' mind. The man from the meeting, the one with the dark eyes who had seemed so doubtful. Where would they find the energy to keep the momentum going? What if no one showed up at the show? "James?" Emma's voice cut through his doubts. She was observing him, her brow raised. "I'm fine," he replied a little too quickly. "Really?" She leaned in, her gaze piercing right through the surface. "You've got that look again. You can tell me." He sighed, the weight of uncertainty pressing against his chest. "What if we fail? We're excited now, but what happens when we need to keep this going? There's so much to coordinate. What if it's just too much?" Emma tilted her head, her expression softening. "Every journey starts with a single step. We can handle this piece by piece together. If something doesn't work, we adapt. We're building a community here." Her conviction settled over him like a warm blanket. The thought reminded him of the elderly woman's words spark back in the community. This wasn't just about a playground. It was about uniting their neighborhood. They spent the rest of the afternoon plotting and planning, unaware of the evening stretching into twilight. Ideas flourished, each suggestion growing bolder. Laughter mingled with their sketches of events, creating a vivid picture of what could be. But as night began to close in, James noticed shadows slipping into corners of their discussion. The remnants of doubt clung to him. The hard questions nagged at the edges of celebration. When a sudden chill swept through the air, pulling them back to reality, James glanced at the horizon where dark clouds gathered. A storm was brewing, not just in the sky but within the heart of their plans. "What do you think will happen if we fail?" Emma asked, her voice still bright but infused with concern. Before James could answer, a loud crash of thunder echoed. They both jumped at the sound, hearts racing. Perhaps this was a sign, a precursor to the trials ahead. "Let us focus on what we can do now," James suggested, pushing the ominous thoughts aside. "One event at a time, starting with that talent show." As they walked home, the sky flashed brighter with another bolt of lightning, illuminating the path ahead for just a moment. James felt the weight of resolve anchor him down whatever storm came. they would face it together. But as he looked back over his shoulder, he couldn't shake that uneasy feeling. Would their dreams withstand the coming tempest? Tomorrow would be a new day filled with endless possibilities, but also hidden challenges waiting to rise with the dawn. The storm arrived just as James had feared, hard and relentless. Rain lashed against his windows, turning the streets into a shimmering river of uncertainty. As he settled into his thoughts, the heaviness in his chest reminded him of the stakes at hand. This wasn't just about him. It was about the community that had cautiously started to believe, the children whose dreams hung in the balance. Amid the storm, a flicker of warmth emerged. In the days following the chaotic gathering, the community had buzzed with anticipation for the talent show. James had been inundated with emails, phone calls, and messages from the townsfolk eager to join forces and bring their ideas to life. Emma had thrown herself into the planning with a zeal that brought joy back into James's heart. Together they had witnessed the transformation of skepticism into excitement. On the day of the show, James stood backstage, nerves spiraling like the wind outside. The small town hall had filled to the brim, families gathered with glimmering eyes and hopeful hearts. The scent of freshly baked cookies wafted through the air, a testament to the potluck efforts by local bakers. Emma buzzed around, making sure every detail was just right, her joy infectious. "James! James!" Emma exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. "Can you feel that? Everyone is here to support one another." He looked out at the crowd, overwhelming pride washing over him. Laughter echoed alongside whispered encouragement, the room alive with energy he'd only dreamed of a few weeks ago. This was a community steeped in resilience, ready to shuck off the layers of despair. As the show kicked off, the spotlight flickered across the stage. The first act was a group of kids performing a dance, laughter and cheers sparkling in the room. With each act, the audience erupted into applause. They rallied together, creating an atmosphere of warmth and kinship like James had never experienced. Emma danced around, exuberant, her laughter slicing through the tension that had once threatened to drown them. Then, midway through the show, it happened. A familiar face emerged from the crowd. The dark-coated woman had returned, arms crossed over her chest, brow furrowed with skepticism. As she glanced around, James felt a weight shift in his stomach. Would she simply reinforce the doubts that had lingered? But instead, as he turned back to the performance on stage, he saw something surprising. She was clapping. It started small, but it began to swell, a hesitant rhythm echoing uncertainty giving way to admiration. Encouraged by the momentum, she leaned forward as she watched mothers shine through songs and dads crack jokes that drew belly laughs from attendees. By the end of the night, as the final act unfolded, the entire audience stood for a standing ovation, thunderous applause ringing through the hall. Just as the last performance concluded, Emma stood there, proud and radiant on the stage, beaming at James with all the confidence in the world. Together, they had made it. The doubts, the storms, everything collapsed under the weight of community spirit. James looked out into the sea of faces. Joy, laughter, and pride twinkled like stars in the night sky. The laughter of children blended harmoniously with the murmur of happy conversations. This was it. He had finally become part of something bigger than himself. As they collected donations for the playground, James felt an unfamiliar warmth blanket his heart. This was just the beginning. They were embarking on the first of many adventures. It would be challenging, but every effort would matter. In the days that followed, the community came alive. Kids played in that very park where Emma had once waited alone in the snow. Neighbors mended broken fences, raised flowers, and shared meals, weaving connections that would outlast any storm. Together, they built something real: trust, empathy, and a bond that went beyond appearances and misgivings, transforming James from just a CEO to a cherished friend. On a sunny afternoon, as he stood hand in hand with Emma overlooking the vibrant garden sprouting around them, he felt whole. "See? We really did it," Emma chirped, her voice a delightful melody. "Yes, we did," he replied, tears prickling behind his eyes. "And now it's just the beginning. We have so much to look forward to." As their laughter melded with the sounds of joyful children at play, James knew he had discovered the greatest wealth of all, not in dollars, but in connection, love, and community. And as he glanced back at the colorful garden flourishing beautifully, he understood the weight of the past melted away, replaced by faith in tomorrow. So, let this serve as a reminder. No matter how stormy the skies may seem, hope is always worth fighting for. Stand together, rise together, and never forget what we build together can change the world. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. And most importantly, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second. Let us spread this message of hope together.